Revelation isn't the end of the world. Okay, say it with me now. Revelation isn't the end of the world. I'm gonna get some subtitles here. Say it with me with the subtitles. Here we go. Revelation isn't the end of the world. And it's not about heaven either.
What the heaven?
Welcome to What the Heaven, where it's good to ask questions. I'm doing a really long series about what the heaven happens after we die. People send me questions here. I've been taking a bunch of questions on my Instagram. If you want to know something that happens after you die, go ahead and get in touch with me at What the Heaven Show on Instagram. But what I'm talking about today is super important and super controversial. It's the book of Revelation. It's probably the most confusing part of Christianity. Somebody sent me a message just asking me, what is Revelation about? And that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Before we get started, I am so excited to share with you my new book. It's the first book that I've launched, and it is available for free on my brand new website, whattheheaven.org. The book is about changing the world. If you're someone who wants to change the world, to save the world, to be remembered, if that's you, my book will show you how. All right, let's figure out what the heaven Revelation is all about. People who are really into the end times, especially here on YouTube, they're always like, the president is predicted in Revelation, or the Antichrist in Revelation talks about this, or 666 tells me that today this policy, or this country, or this politician, or this law, or I don't even know. They think that Revelation is talking about today. First of all, the Antichrist, it isn't even in Revelation. Secondly, if you want to learn more about the mark of the beast, 666, I did a whole video on that. It's one of my most popular videos, and it talks about, well, something I'm going to talk about today. Revelation wasn't written for you and me. Revelation was written for people 2,000 years ago. You know, when it was written. And so there are a couple different approaches that we can take to figuring out what Revelation actually means. Let me show you these two approaches so that we can figure out what the heaven we're supposed to do when we read the book of Revelation. The first approach that a lot of people take, the YouTube people, a lot of people take on Revelation, I'm gonna call it Tinfoil Tommy. And Tinfoil Tommy, they read Revelation and they think that it was written for them, or their church, or their country, whatever they are doing at the current moment. They read a verse like this, and they instantly apply it to themselves. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. Tinfoil Tommy, he reads this passage and he comes up with these crazy theories. John didn't mean locusts, he said. He meant helicopters. And with each new war, each new battle, each new controversy, Tinfoil Tommy predicts the second coming, the apocalypse, the destruction of the world, the rapture, or whatever theory is trendy that week. What about this one? The beast also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Tinfoil Tommy, he thinks that this is like some sort of microchip, and I know you've seen it on Facebook. People even thought that the Apple Watch might have been the mark of the beast. But the people who think these things, they read the Bible a little bit, and they read blogs a whole bunch. These predictions fail all of the time, and that's why Christians like me, we get embarrassed. And we don't want to be the Tommy. We don't want to say this is what Revelation means. So we go the exact opposite route. We neglect the book of Revelation. I call these people neglectful Nancys. Nancy skips Revelation because she has no idea what it means, but she's okay with that. She sees things like beasts and numbers and locusts and churches and a very, very large red box. That's in the Bible. And she reads all of these and she says to herself, what the heaven? Then she flips back to Matthew chapter 5, that's the Beatitudes, and she's like, oh, Jesus, loving people, I can get behind that. I'll just stick to the Gospels. Revelation is not a tarot card, and it's not a magical puzzle either. And actually, it's not about the end of the world. As any good English teacher would tell you, you have to know the author's purpose for writing before you can analyze what the writer said. And luckily, and we miss this all the time, John talks about the purpose of Revelation in Revelation 1 verse 3. John says this, "Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of the prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and who keep what is written in it, for the time is near." This verse of Revelation promises two things, and both of these things should embarrass tinfoil Tommy and neglectful Nancy. First of all, John promises readers a blessing. He says, if you read this, people 2,000 years ago, you will be blessed. Secondly, John promises a prophecy, and this is where things get messed up. Revelation was written by someone in the 1st century to a bunch of Christians in 7 churches that were also alive in the 1st century. You and me, we're not 1st century Christians. How cocky do we have to be to think Revelation was written for us? We're not even living under a Roman occupation, so how will we understand the ideas and the symbolism and the imagery that John is writing about? Can you imagine what would happen if a Roman soldier got a hold of a letter by a religious fanatic and that letter said that Caesar was an evil satanic beast? It wouldn't go that well. Imagine if that Roman soldier got a letter saying that Caesar is not the Son of God. Remember, that's what he claimed to be. To say Caesar wasn't God, that is treason. Here's a cool piece of trivia. John, who wrote Revelation, he is writing it from the island of Patmos. Patmos. I don't know how to say it. And what kind of people are stuck on this island? Political prisoners. It was a place for people who already got in trouble for speaking out against the government. So it's very likely that Revelation, which is saying that the Roman Empire is doing Satan's work on earth, it's really most likely that John has already been caught saying these things before, so he has to hide it in his apocalyptic symbolism. So now John's being careful. He wants to bless the 1st century Christians, but he writes it in a way that only they will understand. He's wanting to say Jesus has already won, but he has to say it in a way that other people, even people like you and me, won't understand. If John, 2,000 years ago, writes a whole bunch of predictions for the end of the world, and then is talking about things that won't happen in a country that won't exist for 1,700 years, is that blessing the churches that received the letter? Instead, with figurative language, John is painting a picture of the spiritual battle happening 2,000 years ago, and he's saying, hey churches, you persecuted people, Jesus has already won. Remember, John is not just giving a prophecy of the future, he's also giving a blessing in the present time. John is saying that the evil powers of the world have lost. And you know what? It's totally true. Nobody cares about the Roman Empire anymore. There's something cool for video games and for really cool movies. The show Barbarians, super cool. But what John is saying is that Jesus, a carpenter from a tiny town that nobody knows about, he's the most famous man in history, and no level of persecution could stop him. That's called victory, and I feel blessed just saying that. And so would Christians living 2,000 years ago. John says that Jesus' victory, the victory described through images and metaphors in Revelation, that victory is also ours. Revelation isn't about the end of the world. It's about victory. When Jesus was crucified, a thief died next to him, and he said, Jesus, remember me when you enter into your kingdom. And Jesus said, okay, cool, man, let's float off to heaven right now in our spirits. Not. Jesus said, today you will be with me in paradise. And as we're thinking about what happens after we die, I think we can get behind that, the idea of paradise. Jesus did not say heaven, because as you can see in my other videos, heaven is not what we're destined for. But there's more to that word. There's more to the word paradise. Revelation is not about the end of the world. Revelation is about a battle, and Jesus is the victor. And what happens at the end? Jesus reunites God and man. They are able to live together again. But think about that. Does that sound familiar? When did God last live with man? Think about it. Think about it. That's right. The Garden of Eden. Now here's where it gets really cool. Jesus' victory reunites God and man. Jesus said, you will be with me in paradise. Well, guess what? If you want to translate the word paradise into something different, the word paradise also means Garden of Eden. Jesus, when he dies, he knows he's won the victory, and he is not saying, hey, man, thief, we're gonna float off to somewhere new. Jesus is saying, we're gonna go back to how it all began. Not in heaven, not as a spirit, not in some other dimension, but right here, just like Jesus when he resurrected. Revelation is not about the end of the world. It's about the beginning of a better one right here.